This is my performance histories presentation. I will be doing it on the MeToo movement. Trigger warning because it talks about sexual assault and sexual harassment. This presentation includes a conversation about what the MeToo movement is and who the key figures are within the movement. How is the MeToo movement portrayed in theatre and film? And what are the oral, literal, digital links to the movement? What is MeToo? This movement is about women coming together to share their experiences with sexual assault and harassment, and helps women to not feel alone or judged. This movement became relevant in the media in 2017 after Harvey Weinstein was accused of sexual misconduct. However, the term was first coined by activist Tarana Burke. Tarana Burke, she is seen as the founder of the movement. She used this movement to shine light on issues surrounding women of colour receiving little to no support when talking about sexual assault. After realizing how many women of colour are overlooked in this topic, she created this movement. She coined the term Me Too when comforting a young girl who came to her with a report of sexual assault. Alyssa Milano. She started the Me Too movement on Twitter after her friend sent her a message which read, "If all women who have been sexually harassed or assaulted wrote Me Too as a status, we might give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem." This inspired her to post on Twitter and encourage others to speak out about their experiences. The Me Too movement has now evolved into something much bigger. Ambra Gutierrez is an Italian model and activist. In 2015, she accused Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault via a police report. She didn't press charges due to the massive influence of Harvey Weinstein within the industry. And also, sexual assault and harassment was not nearly as recognized as it is today. She is a member of the Models Alliance's Leadership Council, which helps to create safe environments for models to work. She was also the first artist to support the Me Too movement in Iran, speaking her story for Iranian women. So, now I'll be talking about how the Me Too movement is portrayed in theatre. Now, I was involved in a piece of theatre in December 2018 called Suffrage 100, celebrating 100 years since women got the right to vote, which is a pinnacle movement in women's rights. We focused on Me Too as we felt like it was an important movement, and we were shocked by how modern it was. This is a topic that needs to be talked about more. There were two performances in particular within this show that focused on Me Too. The first one is Rise Up by Andra Day, and this song included all of us coming together and singing whilst there was a projection playing of women that inspire us and we think were really important in women's rights. The second was This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. This song included people coming onto the stage with protest signs with the hashtag #MeToo on it, as well as involving phrases and slurs that women have reported that have been said to them. And this was a really powerful moment in the show because we were really facing the problem and making the audience actually see it for what it is. And during this performance, we were wearing the suffrage colours to show that we all stand together. How has the Me Too movement impacted theatre? There are some examples of how the Me Too movement in 2017 encouraged theatres to help create safer environments. First one is No Grey Area, which was created by Vicky Featherstone and Lucy Davis. And this was about making a supportive place for people to talk about issues and problems within the industry. Secondly, the UK Theatre's Handbook by Cassie Chatterton. This is a bunch of rules and guidelines to help actors and people working within the industry to make sure that people feel comfortable doing what they've been asked to. So it's a lot of raising questions like, are you okay with this? Do you have any other suggestions of what you might be more comfortable with? It's just really about creating that safe working environment. And the next one is the 24-hour helpline. And this was a service implemented that is for 24 hours and it allows actors to get support or advice at any point. and it means that it's more accessible and that advice is given quicker. Me Too movement in film. In 2019, 3 documentaries were made. Rose McGowan, Being Brave. This focuses on McGowan's experience, how she found speaking out to be scary and difficult, but ultimately has helped hundreds of people gain the confidence to be brave. The Harvey Weinstein Scandal. This documentary shows Harvey Weinstein's life, focusing on relationships, careers, and success, as well as talking about his alleged abuse. It includes exclusive interviews with women who knew him within the industry and their experiences with sexual misconduct and Harvey Weinstein. Surviving R. Kelly. Now, this was a 6-part series that talks about a lesser known scandal involving R. Kelly, which includes all of the women standing together and sharing experience within the music industry. And lastly, On the Record focuses on Drew Dixon, who is a former music executive, and her sexual assault allegations against Russell Simmons. It exposes how celebrity and wealth provided a powerful man with opportunities for sexual abuse, and also shows how Black women have been overlooked as victims of sexual assault. So it takes on a more critical approach to the Me Too movement. Now I'll be discussing the oral, literal, and digital links to the Me Too movement, as well as this in theatre. So, oral. An example of this can be protest. In November 2017, sexual assault survivors protested throughout LA to visually show how many people experience with sexual assault. A massive impact because people are now seeing actual faces rather than tweets on a phone, and therefore it becomes more personal. So it's really putting the people at the forefront of the movement. You can link this to theatre because Richard Schechner has his theory on performance theory, and he talks about how life can be seen as theatre and how the props that we use in everyday life can kind of give insight as to what characters we are. So, in reference to this protest, it can really show how spreading an important message and holding up these banners can really put strangers to see who you really are and stand with you without judgment. And I think that's really what this movement is about. It's about gaining support and really talking about an issue that needs to be spoken about more. So, literary forms of the Me Too movement can be seen in novels, interviews, articles, even the posters that are used in protests. All of these help to represent the individuals who have experienced sexual assault and together portray just how many people share this. This helps people not to feel alone. And again, you can relate that back to the performance theory. So an example is a novel written by Miriam Taus. The story focuses on a community in Ukraine. The novel follows a group of women who learn that the male colonists have raped some women from the colony in their sleep. These women are then arrested for attempting to attack these men in the hopes of defending themselves. Ultimately, after many debates, the women decide the safest option is for them to leave. And this really links back to Tarana Burke's initial reasons for creating this movement in terms of communities who are overlooked as victims and aren't able to speak out and get the support that they need. And that's really what the Me Too movement is about. So the digital side, technology has had a massive impact on this movement and the way that the people interact with it through podcasts, documentaries, and the use of Twitter in 2017. This has allowed it to be more accessible and therefore allow for better support. Digital representations in theatre can be related back to my example from Suffrage 100 and how in Rise Up we used technology to project faces of powerful women within the women's rights movement, including people from the Me Too movement. And it really helps to show how so many women have experienced this and we all stand together with them. So my concluding statements are The MeToo movement began in 2006 by Tarana Burke, who wanted to voice issues surrounding the inequality of women of colour receiving little to no support for sexual assault and harassment. The movement was then popularised in 2017 by Alyssa Milano, who posted a tweet encouraging people to talk about their experiences. This resurgence in 2017, although put the movement onto an accessible platform, may have then overlooked the work of Burke and again took focus away from the women of colour, which was what the cause was focused on originally. The MeToo movement has been represented in theatre, film, and TV, as well as podcasts. These educate people on the issues surrounding sexual abuse and harassment, as well as attempting to reach out to audience members. Theatre is usually a place for escapism, however, it can be used to put social issues at the forefront. Protesting to spread the message can be related to the oral part of this oral, literal, and digital, and can visually show the amount of women and men affected by sexual abuse and harassment, because it's not just women, it is men too, even though the movement is mainly focused on women. This can also be linked to a type of theatre which is used in the idea of performance theory. So again, you can really relate to this idea of spreading this message and putting who you are at the forefront, and therefore making this sort of like a theatre like movement as well. Literal can be seen in novels, interviews, and protest posters, and they help to express the individual stories that make up such a small proportion of the entire movement. And digitally, this movement has had a massive impact. The use of Twitter made the movement more accessible to people and gave many women a platform to voice their experiences. This empowered a lot of women who no longer feel alone. Here you can find all of the sources that I used to put this presentation together. I hope you found it interesting, and thank you for listening.